Good morning. Welcome in a 104.5 The Zone. Hope everybody's off to a great start. Happy Wednesday to you. Jump in at any point. Lucas and I are here with you until 1 o'clock. 615-737-1045 is how you do so. We have news to start the show. Obviously, the Titans have made official the hiring of Ran Carthon as their 14th general manager in the franchise's history. So congratulations to him and to his family. This is a big deal, obviously. Now that they have direction, they can move forward with a variety of other things. As we said yesterday, it was almost assuredly going to happen in very, very short order, given that the Senior Bowl is less than 2 weeks away, Mobile, Alabama, the whole league getting together. The scouting in earnest has already been done, but now it's time to, actually get hands on prospects and see what things are going to shake out before the NFL draft. So they made the hire official, like 20 minutes ago, after it was initially reported by Diana Rossini, our good friend at ESPN. Good job out of Diana. And I believe Jeff Darlington in on the reporting as well. So this is the statement from Amy Adams Strunk. By the way, he is the hire made official today, his press conference tomorrow. So you'll hear from him for the first time then. If we have a time, we'll let you know. It's probably going to be while Lucas and I are on the air here. So obviously, if that's the case, well, regardless of when it's the case, we'll carry that live for you. Here's the statement from Amy Adams Strunk. We are excited to add Rand to our organization as our new general manager. He brings a variety of valuable experiences to our team as a former player and a successful personnel executive for multiple teams. I was impressed with his natural leadership qualities and his ability to connect with people. With talent evaluation being critical to this role, the roster they have built in San Francisco stands out. He played an important role there constructing one of our league's best teams. So now he has a lot of heavy lifting on his plate because this is a team that is, is disarray unfair? It just feels like there hasn't been anything good around them for the better part of 2 months.
Influx
doesn't feel like it does the situation justice, to be honest with you.
I feel like disarray gives an implication of dysfunction from top to bottom, and I really don't think that's the case with this franchise.
Well, they're not functional. When last we saw them, they had lost 7 straight games. I think that they're
aligned
now. It's somebody in the YouTube chat says it's complicated. It's like a relationship status on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Is that still a thing?
What, relationship status on Facebook?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Shouldn't you know better than me?
I haven't touched Facebook in many, many months.
It's an unfortunate part of my responsibilities at A to Z Sports to have Facebook, but either way. So this is the circumstance for the Titans now, and Ran Carthon is going to, be the person who is going to be very, very heavily scrutinized, as will, honestly, I think the offensive coordinator hire is going to be the most scrutinized decision they make this year. But this is a massive part of it, given that the thing that we've been hammering for 2 years is roster, not good enough, bad drafts, fix the roster.
Because offensive coordinator is easier to assign credit and blame, right? You can look at statistics and points per game and
Correct.
what those offenses accomplished, whereas with these type of candidates, there's no book or website that you can look into of, okay, he made the decision for this guy. He stood up for this guy in a meeting when talking about draft prospects.
No, that part of it's just word of mouth.
Yep.
Unless you are somebody within an organization that gets fired and ends up going into media and talking about that kind of
All
stuff.
you can do is look at his responsibility when he was director of pro personnel and scouting other players around the league and look at who the 49ers acquired from around the league and off the waiver wire in that span.
Yes. So now this is the circumstance for the Titans, and we'll talk about what's first on the order of business as far as level of importance is concerned later on in the show. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. Your reaction to Ran Carthon, hired as the 14th general manager in Oilers Titans history. First black general manager hired by this organization in its history going back to 1960. And the circumstance now for the 49ers, he'll obviously, begin work right away. Doesn't have to wait for their playoff run to conclude in San Francisco. It's now his job to get started. And they are, desperately in need of some kind of direction. Now, as far as the other two candidates were concerned, because I think we were still on the air when it was determined that they had narrowed it down from like 8 to 3 between Ryan Cowden. Actually, and we might have been done for the day. Ryan Cowden, Ian Cunningham, the executive for the Bears, and Ran Carthon, who were the three finalists, quote unquote. And then later in the afternoon, it was made official. Well, it was reported as being a done deal that Ran Carthon was going to be the main man. So at this point, I thought all three of the final three candidates would be capable of doing a good job here. But I think the thing that jumps out to me first and foremost is that, one, they valued playing experience. Ran Carthon is obviously a former professional football player. He is somebody who is a very, very highly regarded and fast-rising executive. He's only 41 years old. So he comes in and brings a fresh perspective on what it is that this franchise's current state, right? Whether he would describe it as it's complicated, dysfunctional, or, in flux, whatever you want to call it. We won't find out until tomorrow when we can get his thoughts in more detail on the matter. But I do think that it was important to bring fresh perspective to this. Now, Ryan Cowden, I think, could have done a good job here. I really do. And as somebody who's spent some time around Ryan, I think that it's unfortunate for him that this opportunity that he could have had to keep it in house and get his own direction on things as he continues to pursue general manager opportunities. That's the business. But I do think that this is probably, whether it was Cunningham or Carthon, I do think that outside influence is necessary for a thing that feels pretty stale. So we'll get into your phone calls on this coming up. We're also going to talk about the offensive coordinator stuff. We're going to spend a lot of time on Ran Carthon today, obviously, but we got 3 hours to spread it out. So we will get your reaction to the hire and go through some of the things that he was responsible for in San Francisco, and of course his career going back to a couple of different stops. He came into the league with the St. Louis technically / LA Rams.
Well, he came into the league as a player first.
Well, yes, I believe I said that.
Well,
You're already not listening. We're 11 minutes in.
Well, you just lied.
Okay. Always there for me. But as an executive or as a personnel individual, came into the league with the St. Louis / LA Rams. Now, I saw some, and I don't know if it was just people doing the tinfoil hat thing, but given that his NFL career, as Lucas correctly notes, he was an NFL player. 3 seasons in the NFL, 2004 to 2006, with the Indianapolis Colts. I saw fears of a sleeper cell, an embedded agent. It's kind of like me. I look like Andrew Luck, and now I host Sports Talk Radio in Nashville, Tennessee.
Played for Spurrier, too.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's a Florida Gator.
Florida Gator and Indianapolis Colt. How did he pass the smell test? No, this is a hugely qualified individual, and we'll get into the qualifications as such throughout the course of today. 615-737-1045. Your phone calls coming up next, and a discussion about now turning the attention to the offensive coordinator situation. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. So, Titans settle on a GM. Ran Carthon officially announced this morning about 40 minutes ago. 615-737-1045 is how you react, or via the Zone TV chat. We're live streaming on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can come hang out in the studio with us. So at this point, let's go through everything we know about this guy. And then we'll talk more about priorities for the new GM later on in the show. So I guess the first thing that you should start with is where he is coming from and what it was that his responsibilities were as the 49ers director of player personnel. And he was with them in several different capacities, director of pro personnel and then promoted to director of player personnel, which are two different things. And I'll explain those to you momentarily.
Which he did for the last 2 years.
Yes. This is Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network providing a little more detail to who Ran Carthon is.
More good news this time for the Tennessee Titans. They have a general manager. It is Ran Carthon, the 49ers executive. There were 2 GM openings. Arizona Cardinals had one, hired Monty Austin for it. And then now the Tennessee Titans hire Ran Carthon. There were 3 finalists. There was Ian Cunningham from the Bears. There was Ryan Cowden, the in-house candidate from the Tennessee Titans. Then there was Carthon, who was the director of player personnel for the San Francisco 49ers, has been with the Rams, has been with the Falcons, really worked his way up. This is really cool. Ran Carthon was a guy, when he was like 10 or 11, he would scour the local convenience stores for draft magazines. He would devour all the information. Then he would do his own mock drafts when he was like 11, despite not having seen most of these college players. He was just that into it. Now he gets to run his own draft in Tennessee.
So this is the culmination of, over a month now of what Amy Adams Strunk, as the controlling owner, and the committee that she put together have been looking for, because they fired John, December 6th was when that decision came down, and go through the process of identifying the candidates, finding Robinson's replacement. They interviewed 7 in total, a variety of different personnel evaluators, one that they requested that declined their request as also a member of the 49ers, Adam Peters, the assistant general manager there, who declined several different opportunities, both in Arizona and in Tennessee. Now, what I was told is that they went into this process, before going through the rounds of interviews that they did, is that Adam Peters was identified as the top choice. And that's not shocking to anybody. Arizona, it sounds like, had the same kind of thought process, but just ultimately Adam Peters was not going to be pried out of San Francisco. He wants to be there for the playoff run. Wants to see if he can help, the fruits of his labor can culminate in a Super Bowl. And obviously he is from the area and grew up a 49ers fan. So,
and those guys have worked together pretty closely over the last few years.
Peters and Carthon, yes. So at this point, now we have a situation where the director of player personnel, so this is what you're responsible for in that role. You're evaluating, everything from the top college prospects and going through the process of the free agency board and evaluations. This is something that in San Francisco they have done particularly well. Now, they have a lot of talented people in San Francisco, and, it's difficult to kind of assign one move to one person without being in those meeting rooms, without being in those conversations specifically. So that's not something that we're going to do. And I think that at least in listening, and I thought Ramon and Will and Kayla did a good job this morning talking about, the insights that Ramon had been hearing from people across the league. But also I did think that there was a little bit of confusion as to specifically assigning moves to Ran Carthon that just possibly couldn't. You can't possibly know that person was specifically responsible for engineering that trade or that signing, as we said. But we'll parse that stuff later on. So now, somebody asked, by the way, if the 49ers win a Super Bowl, does Ran get a ring? Yeah, he gets a ring. Absolutely gets a ring. So the director of player personnel is what Ryan Cowden was here. Now, given that the state of the roster was what it was, that is probably the thing that I think made people the most wary about giving Cowden the job. And Chicago has not been overwhelmingly successful as far as personnel is concerned, but Ian Cunningham was regarded very, very highly around the league as well.
He's only been in Chicago, a year?
Yes, he came in with, is it Poole is the last name of the general manager there? Poles.
Right, Ryan Poles.
Ryan Poles, yes.
Yeah, so he was brought in to help fix that mess.
Yes, and so, they were clearly in a state of tearing the thing down before they build it back up, and now are in possession in Chicago of the number 1 overall pick. At this point, for Ran Carthon, the details of his process going throughout the league, something that stood out to me and something that in talking to people yesterday about him, the relationship with executives on an NFL football team and the players who they're responsible for either picking in the draft process or signing in free agency, it can be very, business-like is probably about as warm as it gets, unless, you're like Jerry Jones and you're glad-handing and backslapping everybody and paying your boys because those are your boys, right? And it varies from individual to individual, but to see the amount of player support both publicly and privately for Ran Carthon, I think speaks to the nature of the relationship builder that he is. Because that's not something that's a given. John Robinson, very, very businesslike. And by the way, that's not a bad quality to have. That's not a knock on John. In fact, that probably makes the job easier, given how transactional in nature that is. And who knows, maybe now that Ran Carthon will have his first opportunity as a general manager, that those relationships may have a little more distance than they used to when he wasn't ultimately the person responsible for pulling the trigger on personnel decisions. But I do think to have the respect of the locker room as somebody who's going to be doing these deals, as somebody who's going to be signing contracts and picking players, is something that, was not the MO of the person who was last in this position. It also goes a long way for as far as the respect of the locker room. How often do you hear players bring up, Mike Vrabel or Doug Peterson or Frank Reich, they played, they get it, right? And those just 3 examples that come to mind off the top of my head. There's other NFL head coaches who have playing experience in the league.
But there's examples of the opposite as well. I think the way Mike McDaniel relates to players in Miami is really significant as a guy that never played in the league.
Yeah, but he's an anomaly. Like he's the I think he's the final evolution of like the nerds versus the football people, and like the battle that consistently rages between the numbers and the hand in the dirt, growl, drool, grunt, whatever. Like Mike McDaniel seems to be kind of like the perfect mix. I don't think there's been a Mike McDaniel like that at least in appearances and commentary and relatability and all these things. He seems to be a little bit of a
he's a different cat. Yeah, his personality. But the way Chargers players are sticking up for Brandon Staley right now is clear that locker room.
Keenan Allen is there are players out there on social media, deleted tweets everywhere about like the Chargers and not necessarily about Staley, but I take the Chargers thing with a grain of salt.
No, either way, obviously this was a priority for this franchise, was to bring in a guy with that type of past.
And by the way, did not interview a single person with previous general manager experience. I can't speak to the Cardinals search, but that was certainly the case here. There's not another general manager opening, is there, in the league? It was just the 2?
Just the 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now at this point, you look at a director of player personnel who's coming in here and obviously has had his hands on every level of this thing after being a director of pro personnel, which, if you don't know, reports directly to the general manager. They deal primarily with players, almost exclusively with players who are already in the league. And a lot of those responsibilities include the bulk of contract negotiations, negotiating contract extensions with current players, scouting of the other 31 NFL teams' rosters, And obviously the advanced scouting element of it as well. In fact, the 49ers from a couple of years ago, I think when he was promoted from director of pro personnel to player personnel, the 49ers did an interview with him that they put out on social media, and we'll let you hear a little bit of that in his own words, the first time that you'll physically hear from Ran Carthon before he speaks tomorrow. So at this point, there's a lot to like about this hire. And I think that the thing that the feedback that I like the most, beyond like that he's relatable and he understands the ability to build those relationships with these guys, is that he's not going to be afraid to check Vrabel. Now, that's easier said than done. And it's not like Mike is, out of control or anything like that. But Mike Vrabel is a challenging individual, and not just in terms of like challenging in the sense that he's very strong-willed, very intelligent, very abrasive, very aggressive, but challenging in terms of he will challenge you on a variety of different things. The same way that you hear a very, very small, toned-down version of it when he challenges questions in press conferences, right? So picture that behind closed doors with people that he's comfortable working with and speaking a little more openly with. Now, I don't know Ran Carthon like that, so I can't speak to his personality, but there was, as soon as you talked about the person himself, what comes along with it, given this job and this particular head coach, you got to have somebody who's going to be able to balance this thing out a little bit. And so I think that's an important part of the conversation to consider when talking about Ran Carthon. Albert Breer had a few notes on this as well. Grew up in the Parcells football family, which Mike Vrabel is adjacent to, which, is kind of like doing the Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick tree thing. I don't know about that. Prioritizes toughness in players, meaning that the Titans' identity won't change. And that's another version of this, right? It's another offshoot of the conversation. Can you keep what it is that the Tennessee Titans do and bring it into the future a little more? Now, there's no, the personnel executive is not going to overwhelmingly be able to influence the tendencies in game, which were, I think, the biggest criticisms of Todd Downing, right? And the offensive coordinator conversation is one that we will have later on in the show, is now that search will be the focal point moving forward until we start to get heavily into the draft process. But something also to note about the 49ers and Ran Carthon's role there, this is from David Lombardi. David Lombardi is the San Francisco 49ers reporter for The Athletic. This is a byproduct, talking about Ran Carthon. Ran Carthon is a byproduct of success and building the NFL's deepest roster, talking about San Francisco. Other teams want the personnel guys who made it happen. Ran Carthon was with the 49ers since John Lynch and Adam Peters arrived in 2017. Their track record in the lower rounds has been unbeatable since then. Lower rounds are, and this is a continued thread, at Lombardi himself is the Twitter account if you want to read it for yourself. The lower rounds are the scouting department's rounds. That's where their operation shines. And Ran Carthon operated that part of the 49ers machine. The results indisputably suggest he did a great job. So that's not, I mean, it's great because you want to be able to build depth, right? This thing had moments where it was already very top-heavy at times, and then when the best of the best players that the Titans have on the roster go to IR, the way that so many have in the last 2 years, then, you look at what else you've got, and you're pulling these dudes off practice squads and literally off the unemployment line as far as guys like Buster Skrine and Dontrell Hilliard were concerned when they signed here, and trying to make things work around that. Now, the problem for the Titans in the draft department has not necessarily been in the lower rounds. Now, it's not been overwhelmingly great, but like for every Isaiah Wilson, there has been a David Long, right? And those things don't offset. I'm not suggesting that by any stretch of the imagination, but there are bigger whiffs in the early rounds here as of late. And the day 2 to day 3 picks have been solid. Now, they've not been overwhelmingly great, and you can't win football games, meaningful football games. You can't consistently succeed running a bunch of 5th and 6th round picks out there, the way that John Robinson I thought was pretty adept on day 3 of the draft, even though, I mean, the most recent like glaring example of poor drafting is Des Fitzpatrick, who, by the way, gets a really easy break given all the other problems that this roster has, and that dude completely a non-factor. Even as things started to fall apart health-wise, that dude still couldn't get off the practice squad. So thinking about that is the case. Justin in Germantown says, so exactly what John Robinson did before he came here. What a horrible hire. Well, that's nonsense. You have no idea. I mean, nobody has any idea what Ran Carthon's going to be as a general manager. And by the way, that doesn't guarantee that he's going to be a rock star. It doesn't guarantee that he's going to be a bust as far as those things are concerned. But, this is somebody who they're giving an opportunity to, who is highly regarded and who is going to bring fresh direction, fresh ideas to a thing, as we said, to start the show that has felt stale for several years now and kind of get this back up on track without having to completely go into tear it down mode. Now, we'll talk later about priorities for them at this point, and the kind of things that will be discussed moving forward, where Ran Carthon's responsibilities are concerned. But I would not get bent out of shape just hearing that or reading that analysis as saying, well, John Robinson did the exact same thing. Well, no, John Robinson in New England, they were never regarded as the deepest of rosters. They did make the Super Bowl, obviously, several times. They're an incredibly successful organization. John Robinson was a big part of that while he was with the organization. But I would say to you that there's a lot that was masked and has been masked over the course of 2 decades in New England by nature of them having the greatest quarterback of all time. So being a successful player, being a successful personnel director in several different roles thus far, we will see whether he has success as a general manager. The man just got here. Let's not make any grand indictments of him yet. But I'm curious to know the Titans fan reaction to this, because I think his was a name that many people had gravitated towards, and the information thus far, both in terms of reporting and conversations that are being had with people across the league who have interacted with this guy, it has been overwhelmingly positive. And his future, he'll have to determine that himself.
I think people just are good with attaching themselves to anything the 49ers have done over the last few years.
Well, and you wouldn't be wrong to do so.
I mean, the Titans went that route with Peters and Carthon, showing interest in both.
Yes, I mean, and that's, as we said, there was only 2 general manager openings in the league this year, here and in Arizona, and those were the 2 top. Well, Peters was the top candidate of anybody being interviewed by either franchise.
I don't think Carthon was interviewed by Arizona, was he?
I would have to go back and look. It would not surprise me if he was, but I don't know that for sure. 615-737-1045. Phil in Portland. Hey, Phil.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for taking my call, Buck. Hey, listen, I'm excited about this, man. I mean, we should be celebrating, man. I mean, it shows that we got an owner that's willing to do whatever it takes. I mean, she showed us that with firing John Robinson. She shows us that she ain't playing around with who she's picking. She's going to a team that's got a track record of success. And it's hard for me to believe that this man's going to come here and then they're going to turn things around, because you can't be with an organization like the Niners for 7 years under John Lynch and under Kyle Shanahan, and that's not going to be a positive aspect for us. So I'm excited about this, Buck, and I just want to celebrate. I just want to dance around here because I feel like things are turning around for us. You have a blessed day. Thanks, Buck.
Okay, thanks, Phil. I mean, those are always the vibes in the offseason, right? And listen, I'm just you are totally. This is the first good news you've had in 2 months. Legitimately, the first 2 good news you've had in 2 months, because your team has been terrible. The way the season ended was nightmarish. A lot of you, understandably so, checked out, even as this thing was on the verge of a win and in situation in Week 18 that they ultimately fumbled the bag on. And now you get some sign of hope, because it's just something different than the thing that you've been doing, because the thing that you have been doing has sucked. So now they'll move into the next generation of Titans football. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the entirety of what it is that they are now has to change. We'll spend more time on that later on in the show. Meantime, it is a Wednesday, and 10:45 is when we do some SEC observations. Tennessee getting an SEC road win last night, and an interesting move in the coaching ranks in the SEC West. We'll talk about that next. Get back to the Titans general manager hire here in just a little bit. But meantime, Tennessee Volunteers, after a very, very disappointing result on Saturday at home against the University of Kentucky Wildcats, they went on the road last night to Mississippi State. They got to win 70-59, which means that we must hear the sweet, sweet stylings of Robert Walsh. It's time for what? What happened?
I don't have it pulled up.
Well, so why?
I don't know.
We do this literally at the same time every week. Why don't you have it? You are the person that enjoys this thing more than I do. I'm trying to tee you up.
I think we need a basketball version of it.
Okay. Well, you just want to go into SEC observations?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the SEC observations?
Big bounce back win for Tennessee.
I hate you so much when you just dead fish me that way. What am I supposed to do with that? It's literally the Ricky Bobby, I don't know what to do with my hands.
70-59, the final.
Bleep
What a
you.
dreadful start for Tennessee in this game.
That was tough.
They were awful in the first half. Just a turnover machine. Tennessee without Santiago Vescovi, without Tyreek Key, two really important guards. So you figure, okay, those guys both run the point at times for Tennessee. So Ziegler will probably take over that role. Josiah Jordan-James will probably kind of supplant him in that role when he needs to go to the bench. No. Zakai Ziegler played all 40 minutes of last night's game, a career-high 24 points for Ziegler as things got cleaned up in the second half, and Tennessee outscored Mississippi State 47-36 in the final 20 minutes to move on to 15-3 to pick up their fifth conference win. So Tennessee, after a dreadful performance against Kentucky, a dreadful first half hangover performance, if you will, against Mississippi State, able to bounce back and pick up a nice road win in the SEC. So elsewhere, Kentucky kind of continued their run, and they struggled in this game against Georgia. They were trailing for large portions of this game. They were down 42-34 at the half. They ended up beating Georgia 85-71. And I did a couple of double takes when I saw this stat line from Oscar Tshiebwe. 37 points, 24 rebounds in one game.
It's so ridiculous.
38 minutes. That dude was on the bench for about 120 seconds.
He was an absolute horse last night.
Calipari just said, just go do it, Oscar. Just go win the game. I mean, when I saw that stat line, I saw somebody tweeting about it. Someone said along the lines of Oscar Tshiebwe has been fantastic these last two games. 37 points, 24 rebounds. I thought, oh, wow, that's his stat line for the Tennessee game and Georgia game combined. That's an impressive stat line for two games back-to-back. No.
No.
That was one game. 37 points, 24. I still cannot fathom that stat line from Oscar Tshiebwe, the defending National Player of the Year, yesterday in Kentucky's win over Georgia. So the Cats appear to be slightly figuring it out. And then here in Nashville, Vanderbilt falls to Alabama in what was a really emotional night. Alabama playing for the first time since the situation with Darius Miles, the forward that was arrested with capital murder after a shooting near the Strip on campus in Tuscaloosa. And details coming out about that he wasn't actually the one who fired the gun, but he provided the firearm. Either way, a young lady's life was lost. It is just an absolutely tragic situation. And Alabama kind of fighting through that and playing through it to win in Nashville against Vanderbilt. Jerry Stackhouse talked about it after the game, too. Basically said, I mean, who cares about this game? A young lady's life is lost. A kid's life is changed forever. So, yeah, that was an emotional situation last night. But Brandon Miller showed up, coming back to his hometown. The former Cane Ridge star, Brandon Miller, returns to Nashville, puts up a 30-piece for fourth-ranked Alabama in a win over Vanderbilt and the Crimson Tide, the class of the SEC right now. I mean, a week ago, it was Alabama and Tennessee at the top. But since that performance by Tennessee against Kentucky, you haven't seen anything like that. Any kind of egg laid by Alabama like that this season.
No.
They're playing so well. Brandon Miller, man, he is so good. It looks so effortless for him. It feels like every time, last night, it felt like every time he let go of the ball, it was going in. He is a surefire lottery pick. He's a one-and-done guy for Alabama, but 1,000% SEC Player of the Year candidate, National Player of the Year candidate. Brandon Miller is the guy to watch right now in the SEC, and I say that on a night where Oscar Tshiebwe put up 37 and 24.
That's, I think, the biggest difference for me between Alabama and Tennessee as far as the basketball teams are concerned. Because Tennessee, the defensive efficiency is obviously crazy, but like we talked about, or like Lucas mentioned in the first half of that game, like offensively, they look lost at times. And they have those moments. And that's been, I don't want to assign different things from different Rick Barnes teams in separate seasons, but it does seem like that has been a trend that you can kind of point to. The offensive efficiency after the Kentucky game dropped down into the 50s for Tennessee. And obviously they pulled themselves out of it last night. Zakai Ziegler, as Lucas mentioned, was an absolute stud all 40 minutes, performed as well as anybody could in that moment. But I do think that it's Alabama's conference essentially to win this year in basketball, because I can't trust Tennessee's offense to play at as high a level consistently as I can Alabama's.
Yeah, fair. And Tennessee doesn't have that guy in Brandon Miller. And
No.
really, not many teams do, but just put the ball in his hands and say, go score 25. They just don't have that guy right now. Zakai Ziegler can do it when he plays 40 minutes and Santiago Vescovi's hurt and he puts up a career-high 24 points. But as far as put the ball in his hands, just go take care of business, carry the team on the offensive side, I don't think that Tennessee has that guy right now. It's a lot more balanced, which is a great thing, but also turns into an issue when you just need somebody to take over.
I know Jerry Stackhouse spoke, I thought, very, very eloquently on the situation surrounding the game. But I was scrolling Twitter last night, and I happened to see our friend Nikki Lattarulo at Channel 4 tweet out a quote from Stackhouse. It says he thought this was a winnable game for Vanderbilt, but it comes down to who made shots. Tonight they made shots. I feel like I've been reading that quote from Jerry Stackhouse for his entire tenure here. And, it's just a generality that you say after a game in college basketball. But, man, like the Jerry Stackhouse experience, I keep waiting for something to happen other than – and it's not even like Bryce Drew's tenure here was objectively awful.
Yeah.
Awful. And Stackhouse is not that, but they're just so middling as a program right now that there's an apathy that surrounds Vanderbilt basketball in ways that I wish they could just find some way to break through.
Yeah, Memorial Magic has kind of dissipated under Jerry Stackhouse. Vanderbilt might be getting to a point where they kind of ask themselves, what do they want to be as a program? Because we talk about Tennessee not having that guy, in moments. Well, Vanderbilt certainly doesn't have that this season, and they had it with Pippen Jr., and he wasn't able to get them even to the NCAA tournament alone. So, yeah, a lot of questions for Vanderbilt basketball, who sits evenly at 500. By the way, big win for Belmont yesterday over Murray State.
A substantial win for Belmont over Murray State.
Big win, 15-point win. Ben Shepherd, 23 points. So shout out to the Bruins. First year in the Missouri Valley going swimmingly. On the gridiron, a couple of moves within the SEC West. Do you remember the dance video with Brian Kelly? With a particular recruit, with the cameras going around, and he's doing the thing with the fingers over the eyes. The old
what do they call that? It's like something out of like a 1960s disco.
Yeah, it's the John Travolta, Saturday Night Fever thing, like the two fingers over each eye.
Saturday Night Fever. Yeah. I've never seen that movie.
That recruit that video went viral from was Walker Howard, former 4-star quarterback prospect from Lafayette, Louisiana, and he has hit the transfer portal. Walker Howard in the portal has committed to Ole Miss.
Wait, now he didn't go to LSU though. He went to Alabama.
No, Walker Howard went to LSU.
Are you sure?
He went to LSU.
I thought the whole thing with Brian Kelly, the thing that made it funnier was that player ended up not committing to LSU. He went at somewhere else.
No, Walker Howard was an LSU player. His father also, he was a legacy guy. Father was an LSU player. I think there was another embarrassing moment in the whole start of the Kelly regime that player did not commit.
Oh, man. I think there was some – anyway, I won't bog this down. Continue.
Yeah. Quarterback commit in the portal for LSU, former 4-star prospect Walker Howard to Ole Miss. And in the coaching ranks, Arkansas offensive coordinator Kendall Briles moves to the Big 12 to take over at TCU as the play caller. Now, that was an interesting move to me because obviously Lincoln Riley's younger brother, Garrett Riley, gets the offensive coordinator gig going from TCU to Clemson, hired by Dabo Swinney. And Sonny Dykes goes and gets Kendall Briles, who returns to the Big 12 for the first time since he worked at Baylor under his dad, Art Briles. We all remember how that ended. But this was an interesting move to me because for Kendall Briles at Arkansas, that was his offense. That was his thing. Sam Pittman is the definition of a CEO type of coach. Going to TCU, Sonny Dykes has a lot more of a say. It's Sonny Dykes' offense. He has completely made his career as an offensive guru, as a play caller. So that was an intriguing move to me. I understand TCU just went to the national championship game, and you could say TCU's ceiling is higher than Arkansas's being in the SEC West, having to compete with LSU and Alabama. But still, I thought that intriguing that Kendall Briles makes that move from the SEC West to TCU, where you could argue he will have maybe less control over the offense.
Dylan Elam in the YouTube chat says, I'm thinking of Danny Lewis. That ring a bell?
Trying to remember Danny Lewis.
Either way, we don't need to get bogged down. Those are this week's SEC observations. 615-737-1045 is the number. The dumbest thing in sports this week, and pivoting back into conversations about Ran Carthon, the newest Titans general manager, coming up next.
It is 11:03. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. There is a new general manager in Tennessee. The team made it official this morning. Former 49ers executive Ran Carthon is the next GM of the Tennessee Titans. Carthon joined the 49ers in 2017 after spending 5 seasons with the Rams. He spent the first 3 years as the director of pro personnel in San Francisco before transitioning to director of player personnel in the last 2 years. College hoops, 9th-ranked Tennessee bounced back to beat Mississippi State on the road Tuesday, 70-59. Santiago Vescovi out of the lineup. Guard Zakai Ziegler played all 40 minutes, scored a career-high 24 points. The Vols improved to 15-3. Vanderbilt hosted 4th-ranked Alabama. They fell 78-66. Nashville native Brandon Miller with 30 points for the Crimson Tide. And Belmont picked up a big conference win over Murray State, 80-65. Ben Shepherd, a game-high 23 points. Another home win for the Preds, 2-1 over the Blue Jackets Tuesday. Cody Glass and Yakov Trenin, the goal scorers. They will head to the Blues tomorrow. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour underway. Welcome in, welcome back. If you've been spending your time with us so far, you know what time it is, though. It is 11 o'clock on a Wednesday. That can only mean one thing before we pivot back into some Titans general manager conversation. It's the dumbest thing in sports this week.
Let's be honest. You've already seen something this week that made you say,
What the is this?
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot.
You are really dumb. For real.
It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Rising Show.
It is presented by Painter Ready Murfreesboro. Call for a quote 615-PAINTER or go to www.painterreadymurfreesboro.com. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Mine is real easy. And I hesitate to do this, Lucas, because this man is, he's borderline a deity around here. But Stephen A. Smith is my dumbest thing in sports this week, and it hurts me to say. Whatever you think of people like Stephen A. Smith, opinion makers on sports talk television, Skip Bayless, an entirely different animal. But Stephen A., cartoon character, makes me very happy every time I see him just because he's an insane person. But what he said, he was doing an interview this week on, and I'm looking, the Sherry Show, which I was not aware of until just now. But he's being interviewed, and he's being asked about the Super Bowl halftime show. Rihanna is the Super Bowl halftime show. You were aware of this, yes? Honestly, it's the only reason I wanted to go to a Super Bowl this year.
I'm excited, man.
I love Rihanna. And, she done put out new music. I'm ready for some bangers. I'm hype.
I hope she just runs it back. Yeah.
You mean is instead of, she's not gonna do new music at the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah, no, she'll play the hits.
No, it's my entire high school burn CD childhood, so many Rihanna songs. Absolute monster of an artist. But Stephen A. Smith gets on this show, says Rihanna's music is fantastic. She's great. She's a sister. I love her dearly. I listen to her music. I'm going to support her till the cows come home, but she ain't Beyonce. Stephen A., back away. You can separate these two different things. Beyonce is incredible. Rihanna is incredible. Do not put them up against each other. This is not Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. This is not Joe Montana versus, whatever, Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. Stop it. These are two separate things. Do not get them mixed up. Do not denigrate anything about Rihanna's The Super Bowl halftime show. I'm just glad they're not trotting out dusty old rock bands because they're scared of nip slips like what happened with Janet Jackson.
What, dusty old rock bands? You think of Janet Jackson?
That was a direct reaction to,
Oh, yeah. So they did the rock band thing.
Yeah, they brought out. They literally dusted off
Yeah.
like the Who out of like mothballs and sent them out there.
You're gonna have to take it easy with the Who disrespect. All right,
Why?
I really don't want to hear that because one of the greatest rock bands of all time. We don't have to get into.
Are they
this.
still with us?
Yes, they are absolutely still with us. I saw them in Nashville like 2 years ago.
Okay.
The Who, Tom Petty, Rolling Stones. I loved that little stretch that they had of halftime shows after their hiatus from pop. From the Janet Jackson incident.
I was very, very much over. Like the only, and I love Bruce Springsteen. Like it's the only reason that I know that I was destined to work in sports is because it feels like every person related to sports has some kind of weird obsession with Bruce Springsteen. But
I don't though. I'm kind of whatever on Springsteen.
no, I totally understand that. But when he slid across the stage and ran his crotch into a camera and got up like significantly slower. I think it was like the Steelers Packers Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I'm like, all right, get the old people off the stage. I don't want to watch this anymore. Give me something good. Give me something modern. I give you Rihanna. Do not do that, Stephen A. Bad dog.
Enough with the Rolling Stones, Tom Petty, the Who disrespect.
I just
all right, let's not do that. All right, let's not do that.
I'm not disrespecting all of them. I'm just saying.
My dumbest thing in sports this week. We all remember the Joey Bosa hilarity from Saturday. A critical, unsportsmanlike conduct. It gives the Jags the ball on the 1 for a 2-point conversion. He spikes the helmet. Brandon Staley goes scurrying after it, picks it up, hands it back to Bosa, who immediately spikes it again. And Joey Bosa spoke with the LA media. I think this was on Locker Room Cleanout Day after the Charger season is over, and he talked about that incident and, being accountable. And then it took a little bit of a turn.
I need to be more accountable for my actions, obviously, but it's a heated game. I think there just needs to be more accountability on, if I say something to them, I get a $40,000 fine, but if they blow a call that ruins an entire team's season, they're probably back in the locker room after the game like, got that. Oh, yeah, got him. 15 yards, what a loser. I guarantee it. That's what they're talking like.
Wait, I'm so I've never heard. I don't know why I've never heard his voice before, but like
I had never either. Yeah.
That was like jarring to me.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yeah, very low baritone.
Wait, what kind of monster is that? What the hell?
But I love the way it starts about I need to be accountable for my actions.
Then immediately
and
pivots
it's like,
to,
okay,
but those mother bleepers.
Yeah, you do. Okay, good. Hey, good stuff, Joey. And then it kind of devolves into, but I think officials that need to be held accountable too if one blown call can end a season, which he's absolutely right. I totally agree with that.
Sure.
And then it continuously devolves into officials going into locker rooms after the game saying, yeah, I got that guy 15 yards. What a loser. Did you see that? You see how I threw that flag on him? I just love how he starts with accountability and then he works his way down to mocking officials and pretending like they go into locker rooms after games, laughing with one another, like punching each other in the shoulder. Did you see that flag I threw on that Bosa jerk? Wasn't that funny?
I honestly wish officials did that. That would make me very happy if that was something that was actually happening. Can you play that clip again? I just want to hear his voice. It shocked me.
I need to be more accountable for my actions, obviously, but it's a heated game. I think there just needs to be more accountability on, if I say something to them, I get a $40,000 fine, but if they blow a call that ruins an entire team's season, they're probably back in the locker room after the game like, got that. Oh, yeah, got him. 15 yards, what a loser. I guarantee it. That's what they're talking like.
He just undoes everything that he started with.
Just goes completely unhinged. Honestly, it's fair. You can understand why he slammed the helmet down the first time. Brandon Staley hands it back to him. He slams the helmet down again. Like, it's just, I don't know why his voice is so funny to me. I'd say, what in the James Earl Jones is that?
I just love the duality of man in that quote of starting with accountability for his actions and then going into just going right back to the thing that got him in that spot to begin with.
Somebody says on YouTube, Joey needs to sign a deal with Amazon to read audiobooks. He would scare children.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, not kids' books. Maybe Stephen King books.
Ooh, that's a good call. We'll get to your phone calls on the dumbest thing in sports. Get back into the offensive coordinator situation and the new Titans GM hire coming up next. We're going to go through some offensive coordinator openings here in just a second and talk about which one is the best of the jobs right now. We've got some discussion to still have about Ran Carthon, the Titans' new GM, here in just a second. Reminder, his press conference tentatively scheduled for tomorrow, so you'll hear from him in his new role then, likely while we are on the air. No, I'm sorry, Friday. Today is Wednesday. So we will hear from him Friday at this stage. Got my days mixed up. Meantime, a few calls on the dumbest thing in sports this week. I went with Stephen A. Lucas had Joey Bosa or James Earl Jones or Robert Pattinson or whoever the hell that was. I don't know who that was.
It was James Earl Jones' birthday yesterday.
Oh, was it? He's still with us.
He's in his 90s.
That's an upset. Good for that guy. Eric in Nashville. Always a good one for the dumbest thing in sports. What you got for us, Eric?
Hey, guys. My dumbest thing is sports. I could go with – there's several different I could choose from, but my one's got to be Brett Maher, the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys, who missed 4 extra points in a row against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, guys. I loved it on the Manning cast where Peyton Manning got off and walked off the set. I can't remember if it was after the third or the fourth one, guys. But here's what really makes it bad. If you remember, he missed his last extra point in the regular season finale against Washington, so he actually missed 5 in a row, and he had only missed 3 all season. And, guys, if you remember, guys, when they, on 4th down and 4, they had chest kick field goal, Dallas Cowboys said, we ain't trusting you. And that's when Dak Prescott threw the touchdown pass to CeeDee Lamb. And then, of course, he got the extra point after that. It was a good thing for him. They weren't in a close football game. Guys, that's my dumbest thing in sports. Guys, y'all take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for the call, Eric. So Peyton Manning has always hated kickers. Has always hated kickers not named Adam Vinatieri. I feel like him and Vinatieri got along. Now, Lucas, I've just sent something to our group text, which I believe is the origin story of our group chat, which I believe is the origin story of Peyton Manning's hatred for kickers.
Tell me it's the idiot kicker.
It is the idiot kicker clip.
This is one of my favorite sound bites of all time.
Okay, so Peyton Manning on the Manning cast. Obviously, it's him and Eli, and at least the clip I saw where he gets up and like almost throws a fit on camera, Dan Campbell is on with them at the time, the Lions head coach. So Peyton Manning, obviously not a fan of kickers, especially in playoff moments. Here is a clip from Peyton Manning in the Pro Bowl many years ago.
Hang on. Do you know the context of this clip?
Not entirely.
The context is very important because the Colts kicker, the reporter will say his name. I can't remember how to pronounce it.
Mike Vanderjack or something like that?
Yeah. He'll say the name at the start. But the Colts kicker at the time, this is like 405-ish, before the Colts had won the Super Bowl, went on, their kicker's from Canada. He went on a Canadian TV or radio station and ripped Peyton Manning and Tony Dungy, head coach and quarterback of a team he was still on.
That's right.
And basically said that they're not cut out to win, they're not leaders, yada, yada, yada. And Peyton was asked about it at the Pro Bowl.
There was an article, a story, Mike Vanderjack and your team made some comments questioning maybe your passion and and the personality of you and Tony Dungy as to being winners.
Yeah, that's hard to believe, Lamb. Here we are, I'm out of my 3rd Pro Bowl. I'm about to go in and throw a touchdown to Jerry Rice. We're honoring the Hall of Fame. We're talking about our idiot kicker who got liquored up and ran his mouth off. So, hey, Al, Dan, what has the sports world come to? We're talking about idiot kickers. He has ruined kickers for life. Akers and Vinatieri, these guys are great guys. They've been getting killed all week because our idiot ran his mouth. So when I get home, I'll deal with it. Tony and I talked about it. It's kind of funny, really, when you think about it. If he is still a teammate, we'll deal with it. It remains to be seen. But the sad thing is, Lynn, he's a good kicker. He's a good kicker, but he's an idiot. Hey, Dan, what do you think about this?
Peyton, I think you've already dealt with it.
I counted 4 idiots of his then teammate at the time, Mike Vanderjack,
who did return to the Colts the following season and had a phenomenal year kicking for the Colts after that. After his quarterback said he got liquored up and called him an idiot kicker.
Okay, so Peyton Manning has hated kickers for a very, very long time.
Yes.
Tyler in College Grove is next. Hey, Tyler.
Howdy, gentlemen. My dumbest thing in sports is the guy that was so confident in the Chargers winning when they were 27-0, put $1.4 million on the line.
No.
Win 11,200 and lost.
No.
Woo!
Wait, on who?
On the Chargers to win?
Oh, no.
Yeah, he was just so confident. He's like 27-0. I could put whatever money on it. I can have this. This is mine. Even though I'm only getting 11,000, boom, 1.4 gone.
That is the dumbest thing. Oh my God, if you're that reckless with, I mean, unless you're Mattress Mac, like, and even then, like the amount of money that Mattress Mac bets on these games that he has like investments in, even though I know he's going to make it back in mattresses sales, like 2 days later, it gives me like chest palpitations. All right, to be that careless with $1.4 million, bleep you. Just bleep you. It doesn't matter how much money you've made or will make in your lifetime. Bleep you. That's trash. Those are some pretty dumb things in sports this week. All right, let's pivot back into some Titans conversation because obviously Ran Carthon announced officially today, press conference Friday. We've already gotten upset tweets from media members listening to the show. Teresa Walker says, "Hey, Buck Rising, don't mess up days like that. Nearly gave me a heart attack saying the intro presser is tomorrow." Sorry, Teresa. Offensive coordinator openings, though, around the league. It's an interesting conversation now that they have the GM in place, and we'll pivot back into Ran Carthon and his priorities, what they need to be now that he's the head of this organization from a personnel standpoint. So I have compiled a list of the teams that have fired either play-calling head coaches or offensive coordinators this year. What we do not have at this time, the Bucs reporting, the Pewter Report situation that said that Byron Leftwich would be fired has not happened yet. So I don't know what the holdup there is, if such, whatever the case may be. I haven't followed it that closely beyond the initial report, but I haven't seen that from the team specifically, and that's been a day and a half at this point. So we have not included the Bucs and a potential opening there, but I have 8 on this list of teams that fired head coaches that are play callers offensively or offensive coordinators. I have also included in a separate category fired head coaches whom their predecessors will probably now bring in their own new OCs. Lovie Smith, Matt Rule, neither play calling head coaches, offensive play calling head coaches, but fired. Whomever takes that job will likely bring in their own offensive coordinator situation. So, which of these jobs is the best? Now, I think the answer is a fairly simple one. And really the question becomes, how would you rank the Titans job compared to the other 7? So we'll go, I guess it's not alphabetical. Arizona Cardinals fired Cliff Kingsbury. He's out of the mix. He's in Thailand. One-way ticket. The most, a hero moment for Cliff Kingsbury. Not many on the field, but off the field, he's killing it. The Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett. Colts fired both Frank Reich and Marcus Brady, their head coach and OC. Chargers obviously let go of Joe Lombardi. Titans fired Todd Downing. The Washington Commanders let go of their OC. The Rams offensive coordinator went back to Kentucky. It was what was described as a mutual parting of ways, as was the Jets with Mike LaFleur. So if I give you Cardinals, Broncos, Colts, Chargers, Titans, Commanders, Rams, Jets, there's no question that the Chargers is the best job from an offensive coordinator standpoint, from a play-calling standpoint. The Chargers is the best job. There's no disputing that quarterback, Justin Herbert, you will have people lined around the corner at SoFi Stadium to coach that dude. So I think you have to, by default, and I mean, there's not really a conversation for another one, is there?
No, you separate the Chargers, and then from there, you basically turn to, okay, which of these teams left have a stable quarterback situation?
It's really just the 2.
Rams and Patriots?
No, I'm sorry. The Patriots make a change officially? I haven't seen a change made from New England.
Let me double check, but I've seen several reports that Matt Patricia will not be returning as the Patriots offensive coordinator.
I'm talking about teams that have officially made these transactions. So the Pats and the Bucs, I haven't included on this list. Now, if you're talking about teams that are locked into their quarterback situation.
Yeah, the Patriots are interviewing offensive coordinator candidates.
Okay.
They've interviewed Bill O'Brien. They've interviewed Nick Caley.
So Bill O'Brien officially out then?
No, not officially out at Alabama, but he is getting interviews.
Okay. So the New England Patriots make 9. So teams with established quarterback situations. The Cardinals are locked into Kyler. He just got a big money deal. The Broncos are locked into Russ, and we all know the circumstances that have led to the Russell Wilson situation. The Titans, Tannehill's under contract, and Mike Vrabel's last comments about Ryan Tannehill is if he's healthy, he's our starter. But that one feels more shaky. I mean, for obvious reasons, feels more shaky than the other two. But we'll count the Titans in that conversation for the purposes of this exercise.
What was the first team you just said?
Cardinals, Broncos.
As far as a stable quarterback situation.
Teams that are locked into their quarterback situation, we'll call that stability if you want to call it stable. But
okay, what about the Rams?
They were my next.
Okay.
So those are 4. What are you so anxious? I'll get to it. It's okay. Settle down. So of those in the next tier, so if we're tiering these things, right? Chargers is the top tier job as far as an offensive coordinator is concerned. Then you go down to the second tier, I guess, Cardinals, Broncos, Titans, Rams. What is the best of those jobs? Because I have to think at this point, it's probably LA.
Do the Patriots not get included in that tier?
No, Matt got benched. Like, none of these other dudes have gotten benched.
I feel like Mac Jones should have some benefit of the doubt for the situation they placed him in this season.
He got literally taken out of the lineup for Bailey Zappi. I don't know that I can discern anything definitively about the quarterback situation in New England.
No, you can't discern anything definitively, but they're going to stick with Mac Jones moving forward, and I think there are candidates out there that could be attractive too.
I think the Patriots belong in a separate tier, and I think they belong in the same tier as the Jets. Because Zach Wilson is under contract. Now, he's not had as bad Mac Jones has not had as bad of a run as Zach Wilson has, as two quarterbacks who came out in the same draft class. They're not. That's a different conversation around the quarterbacks. I almost want to take a look at that specifically because San Francisco, I think, has some kind of role in this conversation moving forward. Given that Jimmy's an unrestricted free agent, Trey Lance is I don't know what the hell, and Brock Purdy's about to win the Super Bowl. But so Cardinals, Broncos, Rams, Titans. The Rams are the best job there? Ugh.
Well,
I don't know, man.
As far as quarterback situation, yes. But there are a lot of other moving parts there. The Rams don't pick until 36 in the upcoming draft. Like, we understand they've mortgaged their future to win that Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, their offensive line is a wreck.
Yeah.
Matt Stafford is coming off season-ending injury. I don't know how much of that was they just shut him down because
you get the feel. I mean, concussion. You get the feel they just shut him down.
So, but I mean, it's not his health is kind of in the same spot as Ryan Tannehill, I guess.
Not on offense, but is Aaron Donald retired?
Well, Sean McVay just decided that he was going to come back at this point. So, like that whole thing, you want to talk about in flux? That's in flux.
Yeah. But they don't have a lot of means to repair that broken offensive line at the moment.
I think the Broncos are a better job than the Titans right now, even as Russ is a nightmare. They have offensive skill position talent. They have enough. Now, defense doesn't – rarely does defense translate year over year, and the defense for the Broncos this year was nasty. But I do still think that oh, God, I can't believe I'm saying that after what I just watched Russell Wilson do all year. But I have to think that is still a better job. Cardinals or Titans? I don't know, man. I don't trust Kyler Murray at all. At all. So I would say that the Titans, of that tier of teams, of the 4 teams that we have put in the second tier, Rams, Broncos, Titans, Cardinals, in that order.
Rams, say it again.
Rams, Broncos, Titans, Cardinals.
As far as attractive options for an offensive coordinator.
Attractive options for an offensive coordinator. Nothing. I enjoy watching Kyler Murray just run, like a chicken with his head cut off when he's, when things have broken down because he's an electric football player and an incredible athlete. But like, there was at one time a homework clause in his new contract extension. I do not trust Kyler Murray. And the new GM is Monty Ossenford is walking in there saying ego will have no place in this building, keeping a straight face, understanding that he works in the NFL where ego is literally ingrained in everybody who does these jobs, player, personnel, or otherwise.
Then it depends on the candidate, right? Like, why? Clearly, the Cardinals' job, it appears to be attractive to Sean Payton. Reports are the Cardinals' job is attractive to Sean Payton.
Sure.
He likes Kyler Murray as a young quarterback. So it totally comes down to the candidate that you're talking about and what kind of offense they want to run.
No, but I still think that personnel has to factor heavily into this because Kyler Murray has a higher ceiling than Ryan Tannehill at this stage. Yeah, even if he hasn't done any meaningful winning, like truly any meaningful winning, and Ryan Tannehill has, no matter how much of the staleness or preconceived notions about Ryan Tannehill that you have.
Yeah, just by his age and skill set. But you could say that about so many quarterbacks, a higher ceiling, right?
Sure.
Like that, you get Trey Lance, higher upside.
But is that not what is attracting somebody like Sean Payton, the potential of working with somebody who you think has a higher ceiling than Russ, Stafford, or Tannehill?
Yeah, it's about what you think you can achieve with that upside.
Now, man. It's nothing about and listen, the roster is going to be different for the Titans. There's no disputing that the roster is going to be different for the Titans. But I think at the core, it's still Tannehill and Derrick Henry at the end of the day when they roll this thing out in 20. I mean, we'll find out from Ran Carthon on Friday, I guess, about Ryan Tannehill, because that obviously matters a great deal. But the two things that you are almost certain about, one more than the other, Derrick more than Tannehill, that's still going to be the thing that you're rolling into 2023 with, theoretically. So that up against Arizona, who is actively seeking, it seems, to trade DeAndre Hopkins, who has Kyler Murray on a big extension and not a lot of else going on around there. Hollywood Brown is just good enough to piss you off, I think, if you're a Cardinals fan. He has to be one of the most frustrating players in the NFL. And how much that changes, given that Cliff Kingsbury's offense is a very, very specifically tailored thing to both Cliff and the quarterback situation. I don't know what Sean Payton looks at and sees there. Okay, well, we'd run a much different version of offense than what it was that Cliff was doing, because a lot of times it's just like I know that there's obviously game planning that goes into that, and I know that Cliff Kingsbury is skilled, even if he is not a good head coach, but I have to think that you have to play a certain style of football with Kyler Murray, given what he is and more importantly, what he isn't.
So is the one franchise that we haven't included in this, are they by default the worst situation, the Washington Commanders?
Yeah, because Taylor Heineke's not good. I mean, he's a fun story, and they won games with him, to his credit. You can't take that from him, but Carson Wentz, who is still under contract there, yeah? Like, they can't get out from under him
yet.
Yeah,
I don't think they signed him to a one-year deal.
Well, no, they assumed the Colts contract.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I need to look at the details on Wentz, but like Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, either one, which is unfortunate because I like a lot of other things about the Commanders football team. That might be a fun job if you had the quarterback situation figured out, but they won just enough games to not have a great draft slot.
Poor Terry McLaurin, man.
Poor Terry McLaurin, poor Brian Robinson, even though I think he's a dope, poor Montez Sweat, like all those dudes.
Yeah, Wentz under contract through the 2024 season.
Oh, God.
Two more years.
Oh.
His cap hit coming up in 2023 is over $26 million, and it goes up to $27 in 24.
They do have Sam Howell, who came out there and kicked the Cowboys' ass in Week 18, but
I think like that 8th or 9th starting quarterback McLaurin has played with in Washington.
I feel so bad. He is such a good football player.
Yeah.
So Chargers top, let's say Rams, Broncos, Titans, Cardinals, second tier. Patriots over the Jets in the third tier. And then I think the Commanders, just by nature of having no idea what the hell they're going to do at quarterback, Commanders out in the cold that way. Now, the Carolina situation, Carolina and Houston are both worse. They don't have an answer at quarterback right now between Davis Mills or who was Davis Mills splitting time with against
Jeff
the Titans?
Driscoll.
Jeff Driscoll, that's right. And Sam Darnold in Carolina. Those two situations fired their head coaches, will likely have new offensive coordinators, but those I think you have to put unto themselves. Like, I don't think they factor into this conversation.
Those are the two in here that you would designate as just total rebuilds, right? Texans probably more so than the Panthers.
Yeah, well, they have 11 picks coming up in the NFL draft, so somebody's going to have a crack at a legitimate rebuild. Justin in Germantown says, Commanders have better playmakers than us and are in the same situation as us at QB. No, Ryan Tannehill is a considerably better option. That's nonsensical and it's biased. Ryan Tannehill is a significantly better option than either Taylor Heineke, bleep it, Terry's down there somewhere, or, goal line interception Carson Wentz.
Don't forget Sam Howell.
I have already forgotten about Sam Howell twice in the middle of the segment.
The point is, there's just no direction there as far as the quarterback position goes.
Agreed. So beyond, the Titans' job is not one that is overwhelmingly attractive right now. And unlike the general manager search, which they have finalized, now every team has their general manager in place since Monty Ossenfort got hired 2 days ago, and Ran Carthon here with the Titans announced or reported yesterday, made official this morning. The rest of these teams just kind of in a bit of a hellscape. 615-737-1045 is the number. Speaking of quarterback hellscapes, two guys who just won't shut up and go away. You'll hear from one of them coming up next. You want to hear something messed up? Have Stephen A. ready. On the day, by the way, on the day that the Titans announced their new general manager hiring, a very happy 46th birthday to former Titans GM John Robinson.
Happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
Buddy, if that ever sounded like somebody twisting the knife, there's no way that was intentional. But, oh, my God, somebody just DM'd that to me on Twitter. I laughed out loud. But, yes, I hope John's having a very happy birthday. I haven't heard his name at all anywhere. Like, I mean, I guess there's only the 2 job openings, but.
Yeah.
And I guess people don't really track, like, director of player personnel that closely once you get through the general manager stages of things. But, I mean, I haven't heard any man. I don't know if John's like actively looking, but I just think you don't think that's interesting at all? The fact that you haven't heard anything about the guy.
I mean, like you said, yeah, 2 openings, but really 1 because he just got let go from 1. So
yeah,
I guess maybe if
I'm not saying for a GM, I'm just saying like he's not.
Oh, I got you.
There's nothing out there about John.
Yeah. No, it'd be interesting if you go into the offseason and you just don't see him get back into football. I mean, who was the Texans GM? Rick Smith. Rick Smith. He just hasn't been in football since that ended in Houston, right?
Yeah, but that was a whole. I mean, the details, and I don't remember all of the specific details, but that was like he was like run out of town by Bill O'Brien. It was like a coup.
Yeah,
the way that went down. And also, I think he missed some. And I don't want to recklessly speculate. But I think there was also some family health situations going on with Rick Smith, if I remember correctly, that may have removed him. I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn, but it's not like Thomas Dimitroff, who immediately went into media after he was fired by the Falcons, like he's traveling across the country in a van interviewing other GMs for podcasts. Like John's not going to go do TV. Not going to be like Scott Paoli and end up on NFL Network, right? So I think it's interesting. I don't know. Meantime, we talked yesterday about the Tom Brady stuff and the Titans and the other 2 teams that he was initially linked to on Sunday before the Bucs lost their wild card weekend game to the Dallas Cowboys. Then there's Aaron Rodgers, who flat missed the playoffs, and his team kind of petered out the same. Well, I don't want to say petered out the same way that the Titans did. They didn't lose 7 straight games, but the Packers had an opportunity in the final week of the season, and really, really through not necessarily Aaron Rodgers' fault, but he didn't do much to help them get into the postseason in the final week of the year. So Aaron Rodgers is talking to Pat McAfee. He's talking to Pat McAfee about his circumstance heading into 2023. And it is such a fascinating dynamic between the 2 of them because Rodgers he's going to be in his 40s coming up pretty soon. I believe he's 39 right now. And Tom Brady will be 46. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers will be, he turned 39 in December, so he's just recently 39. Aaron Rodgers, 39. Tom Brady going to be 46 if he plays NFL football next year, which is the expectation. I have no idea which of these 2 is going to retire first, but like the more I hear Rodgers talk about stuff, the more I think that Tom Brady is going to outlast him in the NFL. Here's Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee Show.
Do I still think I can play? Of course. Of course. Can I play at a high level? Yeah. The highest. I think I can win MVP again in the right situation. Right situation, is that Green Bay or is that somewhere else? I'm not sure. But I don't think you should shut down any opportunity. Like I said, during the season, it's got to be both sides like actually wanting to work together moving forward. And I think there's more conversations to be had. I think no player wants to be part of any type of rebuild. I said that years ago. Reloads are a lot of fun because you feel like you're close. You're only a couple guys away.
So that's Aaron Rodgers. Now, he went on at some length to basically say, there's a longer version of that clip where he basically says, yeah, if a team actively engages in rebuild discussion, then I'm not going to play for them, is what he said. And I get that at 39 years old. And he, by the way, has earned the right, no matter what you think of him, and his constant musings and his ayahuasca and his his immunization versus vaccination or whatever BS he was pulling on the Green Bay media. He is still a high-level player if he wants to be. The question is, how much more does he want to be? Now, that was something that basically Trevor Sikkema said of Tom Brady during this season. Like at a certain point when they felt, or when it was discussed and reported by Pewter Report that there was a plan to fire Byron Leftwich, the OC there, as recently as halfway through the regular season. And when they didn't, it seemed like Brady just kind of went into protection mode, and his offensive line also awful. But I have no idea who's going to retire first between those two. All I know is that it is going to be an exhausting offseason free agency period, even though Aaron Rodgers is under contract, between the two of them, because those are going to be the names that are discussed the most by the most amount of media outlets, because they're the most famous quarterbacks in the cycle this year. Nobody can hear what Lucas just said to me in my ear, but all you need to know, I don't think Rhett Bryan and Robert are on camera, but all you need to know is to look at their faces and just know that I'm not happy about this. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:59. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. There is a new general manager in town, and it is now official. The Tennessee Titans have hired former 49ers executive Ran Carthon as their next general manager. Carthon joined the 49ers in 2017 after he spent 5 seasons with the St. Louis and then Los Angeles Rams. The first 3 seasons of his time in San Francisco spent as the director of pro personnel before transitioning to director of player personnel, a role that he held for the last 2 years. As the 49ers get ready to host a divisional round matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, Ran Carthon expected to speak with the media for the first time as the Titans general manager this coming Friday. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. If you're just now hopping in your car, jumping on your lunch break, whatever the case may be. Happy to have you guys here for one more hour, Lucas and myself. Titans hired their 14th general manager in franchise history officially this morning. News reported last night by Diana Rossini and Jeff Darlington. Good work by them. And now the question becomes, well, when are you going to hear from him? You're going to hear from him on Friday. The press conference tentatively scheduled for then. And then secondarily, who is this guy? We talked about that a little bit to start the show. Director of player personnel in San Francisco, after being the director of pro personnel in San Francisco, had a couple of years with the St. Louis, then turned L.A. Rams under the Jeff Fisher administration. So Coach Mack, I'm sure, will have good insights on Ran, not just as a player, but as a person. And then beyond that, what are his priorities, or what should be his priorities? We'll find out what his actual priorities on Friday, but in the meantime, we have time to have fun and speculate, right? Now, there's a clip from the San Francisco 49ers from 2019, I believe the year is, and this was when he was promoted to director of player personnel. And it's just kind of like a staffer get to know you type of thing that the team did on social media. And I want you to hear from him for the first time, because he details what his job was and some of the situations that kind of lend themselves to why he will be a good general manager here in Tennessee.
Hey, I'm Ran Carthon, Director of Pro Personnel for the San Francisco 49ers. So in pro scouting, we're in charge of the daily maintenance of the waiver wire, which is every player that's cut and brought on the street. So we look at that and determine if those guys have a fit and a role for the Niners. We also do the week-to-week scouting reports during the season called the advanced scouting reports that we meet with the coaches on to help prep for our upcoming opponents. And then we also do the free agency process, the unrestricted and restricted free agents that are in the league, and evaluate each and every one of those players and bring them to the attention of our GM and head coach and how those guys fit as Niners. Yeah, so it's funny to see how everything comes full circle. I played collegiately at the University of Florida. Came in the class of 99. There was a safety in the class of 1998, Lester Norwood, who at the time had a little brother, Jarek McKinnon. From being teammates and being around, and Lester and I lived in the same apartment complex, used to see this little kid run around. Fast forward now, Jets, our starting running back, and to see him grow from, being an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid to now full-fledged NFL starting running back, it's kind of surreal to see him, walking into the building every day and seeing the man that he's become.
So that's Ran Carthon a couple of years ago when he was still the director of pro personnel, then promoted to director of player personnel, which means not only does he oversee the pro scouting element of it, but also the draft at the highest levels. Now, Ran Carthon is going to have a lot of different decisions to make here in Tennessee. the number of unrestricted free agents, and we'll keep it to unrestricted. I mean, well, you can't just keep it to unrestricted free agents. I guess you should look at all types of them, but obviously there's a couple of different complications to work through there. Some notable names on this team who are unrestricted free agents beyond the players that they're going to have to do some legwork on contractually. So let's just go down the list of UFAs. Lucas, and I'm going to ask you who you'd keep and who you'd let walk, or who they need to keep and who they need to let walk. Shall we? Austin Hooper.
What does the money look like?
He was paid $6 million this year on a one-year deal.
On a one-year deal?
On a one-year deal. Keep Austin Hooper. Jeff Swaim.
Let go.
Are you tired of the Swaim experience? The team's best blocker is a tight end. What do you mean? I agree with that assessment. A.J. Moore, who never really contributed, he was hurt, done for the year. I think it was a special teams play in the preseason, maybe?
Just wasn't available.
Yeah, so we'll take him out of Lonnie Johnson.
Availability issues.
And, not a starter. I mean, he was forced into action
forced into it.
Because of their situation, and somebody who's a physically talented player but hadn't really put it together as a pro. Morgan Cox, the long snapper.
Keep that man.
That man will not stop. He belongs in the state of Tennessee for as long as he wants to be here.
Yes, let him long snap till he's 50.
DeMarcus Walker, who had a career year here.
What's his contract look like? I mean, picked up off the street.
He was paid $1.18 million last year.
One-year deal?
Yeah.
Yeah, DeMarcus Walker played some really good football for the Titans.
Now, his market value, and this is just spot track, so it doesn't guarantee this is what he's going to get, but he's projected as a $3.2 million a year player on his next deal after having a career year here in Tennessee.
Yeah, what he offered this season would be worth that money, in my mind.
Correct. Dontrell Hilliard.
Keep.
Okay. So, Dylan Cole.
Keep.
Trent Cannon never really factored in. Terrence Mitchell. Corner is a problem.
Yeah.
Terrence Mitchell figured it out.
Terrence Mitchell, how old is Terrence Mitchell?
He is 20. No, he's 30.
I could see Terrence Mitchell on this roster going into training camp.
Buster Screen-esque.
Yeah.
One might say.
Sure.
Mario Edwards.
Keep.
You can't keep all of these guys, Lucas.
I'm not keeping all of them.
Okay, well, you're keeping most of them.
Well, we let go of Lonnie Johnson.
Jeff Swaim is the only one that you said, get him the hell out of here.
We let go of Lonnie. We let go of A.J. Moore. We let go of Jeff Swaim, Trenton Cannon.
Corey Levin. Center is not a guarantee moving forward. I don't know what Ben Jones's – I know what his contract situation is. I don't know what his career decision is going to be, but I know that I think it's more likely than not that Ben retires.
Yeah, center feels like a prime position to target in the draft. It's just about.
But this is somebody who's 28 years old, who's been in the league for 6 years, who I thought played pretty well. I thought him and Jordan Ruse acquitted themselves fairly well by the time that they got more time out there. I mean, they weren't a good offensive line unit collectively, but the tackle situation, nightmarish.
Yeah, and Levin, a guy that can play guard as well. Has been with this team multiple stints.
And is a different person now than the person that was drafted here and then bounced around the league a couple of different places.
And the problem with this, too, Keith Carter, I'm sure had a hand in bringing back Corey Levin. Keith Carter was his offensive line coach in his first stint with the Titans. He was the one that could speak to how he's developed over the years. Keith Carter's no longer with the Titans. Obviously, they haven't hired an offensive coordinator yet. So this is all very premature conversation. But I imagine Levin is here during training camp.
Joe Jones and Andrew Adams.
I don't know about Joe Jones, but Andrew Adams played some good football for this team before he got hurt in the Dallas game?
Yes. Deshaun Hand, he played the first game with the Giants that had tore biceps. Josh Kalu had to play, but, Kalu's been bounced around a couple of years. Nate Davis.
Needs a new contract.
His market value right now, and again, these are just projections. This doesn't mean this is what they're going to get, but that seems way low. $7.4 million average annual salary? No.
I think you would take that.
Sure, you would take that and run.
Look, this team doesn't have any building blocks. Let's say Ben Jones' career's over. Other than Nicholas Petit-Frere, and potentially re-signing Nate Davis, what building blocks does this offensive line have?
NPF.
Yeah, that's why. And I already said NPF.
Yeah, and
that's it.
Radens is now coming on off an ACL tear. So,
and a late season ACL tear where he is not going to be right in training camp, you would imagine.
It's like week 15.
Yeah, it was in LA.
So, those are the unrestricted free agents. Now, you can get into restricted guys like T.R. Tart, NWI, Aaron Brewer. I'm sorry, 2 more. Dennis Daly.
Do we need to? I feel like we've done enough of Dennis Daly talk this season.
David Long.
That's interesting because Long has everything that this team would want out of an inside linebacker. Was a 6th round pick that's developed really nicely. Now it's contract time,
and he's got a new GM.
And he's got a new GM, and he ended the season on IR. And he was name dropped by Mike Vrabel in the final press conference of the year, along with Christian Fulton, right, as these soft tissue guys.
And guys, like he mentioned and knocked on wood at the podium when he said Kevin Byers never had a hamstring issue. Now, I do think that's a bit unfair, to be honest with you. But, I mean, this is like Derek. The last time I remember Derek having like a soft tissue situation, he had a hamstring injury that he could have played against the Saints in 2019 or 2020? Either way.
That meaningless game against the Saints, they held him out?
Mattered none to either team, so they sat him. But Derek is another one. Like, durability is a thing. Now, a lot. Mike Vrabel's numbers. Oh, well, you have the injury clip of Mike Vrabel talking about the variety of different injuries. Let's hear from the Titans head coach. I believe this was locker room cleanout day.
Well, we have to address it. We have to at least look at it, and we are, and we have, and we do it every single day. That I meet with Todd, that we meet with Frank, that we're trying to figure out what these injuries are, Gentry, and I know that everybody, has got the answers. I don't know if I have the answers on, the 90% of the injuries occurred in the game, right? Of an ACL or an MCL or a high ankle sprain. I mean, those are hard, We look at soft tissue injuries. We look at those soft tissue injuries of, repeat offenders. It doesn't take too hard to look and see that, Christian Fulton and David Long are, they're repeat offenders of soft tissue injuries. They have to figure out a way to train and act like, the game's played at a high speed. Kevin Byard hadn't pulled a hamstring since we've been here. And there's a durability factor to playing professional football that we should not overlook.
Repeat offenders. As if I get what he's saying. He's not like, but he's not like calling them out, but he's kind of calling them out.
Hey, Blaine talks about this all the time, and Blaine has a better perspective on it than we ever could, obviously. But about what it takes as far as your own responsibility of taking care of your body, to where injuries, there is some responsibility on the player as well. Blaine talks about it all the time, and Vrabel clearly has a similar mindset. That if you are a quote-unquote repeat offender, it's probably something that's also happening on your end.
Yeah, because that's the biggest problem as anything. It's like, but why not mention Bud? Soft tissue, I guess, is different, right, than Bud with hip pointers and a chest thing at the end of the year that ended his season. And there's no guarantee that guy's going to be back. Yeah. But it is a fascinating thing to consider because David Long and Christian Fulton, David Long is their best inside linebacker. Christian Fulton is their best corner for the foreseeable future. Maybe Roger McCreary takes a step. But
you didn't mention Zach Cunningham, but, is it hard to imagine Zach Cunningham on this roster next season?
Oh, get him out of here.
Yeah, the way he just kept re-aggravating injuries towards the end.
It's not even that. It's not even that. He wasn't good when he was out there and he was healthy. Like the dropped interception against the Chargers is brutal. He re-injured the elbow in that game, and then when he was playing, he was missing tackles against the Bills and letting fullbacks wander in the end zone and stuff like that. I think that here's the thing, all right, because the offensive line is the biggest situation. We'll get into this. What do you think the Titans' new GM? What do you think his first priority should be? 615 from a personnel standpoint. 615-737-1045. we can get into a discussion about that because I think there's a variety of different things. These are just unrestricted free agents that we have mentioned. And there is something I think the case has never been more strong for because of what Lucas just pointed out about the offensive line. We'll talk about that. Take your phone calls coming up next. How happy are you right now?
Just the easiest way to make my day, you know?
So when you work in media, or at least, I don't know if television is the same way, but if you work in sports talk radio the way that we do, oftentimes there are tremendous amounts of free food just scattered across the building. And like not like, not like a candy bowl here and there, but like literal tons of what is in there that you just I think you stuck your face into every bag that I saw.
Little Blue Menu, which is great, dropped off a bunch of fried chicken, onion rings, these like lemon shortcake things they have.
You ate all of that in the
good.
5 minutes that we went to commercial break. I barely had time to go get a water.
Like, it's just what's your favorite part of your day? Just day to day. What is typically the most enjoyable part of your day?
Oh, that's a good question. When I wake up in the morning and make coffee, like nothing makes me happy. I'm much more a morning person than I am a night person, which is crazy because I do an 8 p.m. streaming show. But waking up, somewhere between yesterday was 3:30, today it was 5:30, somewhere in between there, making my coffee and just like hanging out, like just giving myself a moment before whatever the hell I'm going to have to do today.
For me, it's just sitting down and eating. Just eating a meal. Cooking and then eating a meal is especially the best part of the day.
No, okay, well, you're a good cook.
It's like the only hobby I have outside of this.
I did no free ads, but I did one of those meal service things that like ship you the ingredients.
Yeah, see, that's cheating for me. That's no fun.
Oh, it's the only way that I will cook.
I see why it's convenient, and I see why that is the only way people will cook, but it just takes the fun out for me.
Well, nothing ensures that Lucas is going to be in a better mood, but also that I'll lose him for the rest of the day like a break room full of free food. So, speaking of shopping for ingredients, Titans general manager Ran Carthon, what should be his top priority? We talked about the free agents unrestricted that this team has, some interesting names at this point. Somebody just says the first drink after works is Stubley with the best part of their day. That sounds like a summer poll question. It's almost like Robert's weekly positivity. What's the best part of your day?
Best part of your day.
At Two Rivers Ford. Priorities, though. So I'm looking at the current active contract situation for the Titans. So this does not include guys like Nate Davis or David Long. This is just dudes who are under contract moving into the 2023 season. And the names at the top of the list, there's 5 of them, and only one of them I can absolutely guarantee that will be back next year. The 5 highest paid players on this team, only one would I bet, or what I know, is back in 2023 for certain. Can you name the 5 highest paid players on this active roster right now?
5 highest paid players on the Tennessee Titans would be Ryan Tannehill.
1.
Derrick Henry is one of the 5.
Derrick
not
Henry
one of the
is
5?
Outside of the top 5. Derrick is in the top 10, but he is not the top 5.
Are you talking about average annual salary?
I'm talking about their contracts.
The totality of their contracts.
The totality of their contracts.
Okay, Taylor Lewan.
He is 4.
Harold Landry.
He is 2.
Bud Dupree.
He is 3.
So is that not all of them?
No, you need one more.
Kevin Byard.
Kevin Byard is 5.
So Henry's probably what, 6?
Henry is 8.
8 behind who? Is he the hooker, maybe?
This is going to hurt you. Robert Woods and Zach Cunningham.
Wow. What a world.
Now, Derek's cap hit is $16 million next year. So, that's a big number, especially for a running back. But on an average annual basis and the structure of the contracts, Ryan Tannehill has the biggest deal, 4 years, $118 million, 5 years, $87.5 for Harold. Bud Dupree, 5 years, $82 is just brutal. Taylor heading into the last year of a 5-year, $80 million deal. Kevin Byard, 5 years, $70.5. So Byard, I think Byard is 29 years old. It would be difficult to envision a world where they didn't have Kevin Byard on their roster, and he still has. Oh, I forgot that they maneuvered around his deal a little while ago because they converted $7.69 million in 2020 into bonus, which then cleared cap space but moved the money forward. So he has the last year of his deal is scheduled to be 2024, though there is some money associated with the 2025 and 2026 seasons and Kevin Byard. It is difficult to envision a situation, though, where at least 3 of those top 5 names are back with this team. Now, Tannehill, I think, is the biggest question mark. Lewan is on this, campaign that he's getting cut. And I don't know that he's not getting cut. I don't know that he is getting cut. I just know that Taylor is actively, he's quote-tweeting jersey edits of him in the Steelers uniform and talking about how good those colors look. I think it's entirely a possibility that Taylor doesn't play football if they cut him. I think that dude, is very much enjoying what it is to be Taylor Lewan right now, even though the greatest source of his relevancy is first and foremost football. The Barstool thing, though, can really shoot him into the sky if he wants to, and that dude can do anything that he wants with media. What was it, the semifinal, was it an alternate broadcast with him and RG3 and Colt Kublik?
Yeah, on the sideline.
Yeah, they killed it on that. Taylor is going to have a very, very long and productive media career and lucrative media career at what point he decides to quit playing football. Now, if they cut him this year and he doesn't necessarily want to go somewhere else, he's 31 years old, that one is one where I think it could be a wild card in the middle of this, where it's not necessarily about where he goes next. It's about, does he want to keep playing? And that's only a question that Taylor can answer. But as I said earlier in the season, when they were still having the offensive line problems that they have, Taylor's ACL re-repair is a big question mark. We have no idea what that's going to look like when he gets back out on the field. We knew what it looked like in 2021, where he struggled significantly, but apparently there were some complications with his initial ACL repair, the one he tore in 2020, that caused it to be a problem that lingered until he, got shot by a sniper in Buffalo on the first play. To release Taylor Lewan saves you $14 million flat. Money that you could really, really use right now. And you have an 11th overall pick. Well, it's not $14 million flat. It's almost 15. It's 14.8. He has zero dead money associated with his deal. It just makes too much sense to move on financially from Taylor Lewan. But their offensive line situation is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. And the 11th overall pick, the last time they had the 11th overall pick, it was Lewan. That worked out to their benefit for a couple of years, and then obviously things have tailed off since then. Now, you can, with the 11th overall selection, you can get one of the best offensive tackles. You can get one of the best wide receivers. I would say one is a bigger priority than the other. But if you're Ran Carthon and you see what the tackle market looks like to begin with, secondarily that the best ones don't hit free agency, and that this particular team that you're getting ready to take over is just in the 7th circle of hell when it comes to offensive line. Would you give any consideration to doing something with Taylor that brings down that saves you some money but doesn't release him?
I mean, saving substantial money, right?
Yes. I mean, you can't 14.8 for a left tackle in the NFL is good, but not a left tackle that doesn't play. And, obviously Taylor has not played a considerable amount of football since he signed his extension.
Yeah, the question is how much are you able to work that down, and what's your limit that you hit and say, okay, the freeze point, so to speak, where we can't go past this point for it to be worth it to bring you back?
See, I think they've already reached that point with Bud Dupree. Taylor, I truly don't know, but I don't think it's as cut and dry as $14.8 million in savings. Move on from Taylor Lewan, even though I totally understand why that would be the primary thing. Rookie offensive linemen kind of suck. No matter how highly touted they are or how well they do in college, they kind of suck. Evan Neal, who was one of the top drafted tackles this year, was objectively terrible. Andrew Thomas, his counterpart in New York, the left tackle from Georgia, who came out at the same time as Isaiah Wilson. He was great this year. Awful his first year. So it's not a guarantee that simply drafting a top pick on the offensive line is going to put you in a better offensive line position the way that you think it should. Now, I can't guarantee that I'm not saying that you should avoid rookie offensive linemen altogether because they're terrible. I'm just saying it's if any position in the NFL needed a feeder league before they went to the actual pros, it's offensive linemen. So I just think that there has to be some consideration given in an incentive-laden deal to manage the Taylor situation as best as humanly possible, even if you're somebody who goes into this thing thinking, all right, he's basically like an old truck at this point that you know is going to break down at various, but you're sentimental about it. You may not be that sentimental about it at this point. I think a lot of people like Taylor. I think a lot of people appreciate what Taylor has been for this team, but it's just he hasn't been that in a very long time. And we've talked about this. He's not Trent Williams. He's not one of these Trent Williams doesn't have bad snaps. Just flatly doesn't. Now, I know that's the one guy, and offensive tackles can get got at any point. But Taylor's like a second-tier left tackle. And second-tier left tackles can still be productive because you just literally had the worst left tackle in professional football last year. But, man, I think the Lewan situation is made much more complicated by the fact that, as you pointed out, Lucas, the only building block they have right now is NPF under contract.
And who helped bring Trent Williams to San Francisco?
Ran Carthon. This is so.
Although Trent Williams made that move when? 2018?
Yeah, because the situation for Trent Williams in Washington wasn't there. There was some kind of like medical situation revolving around both he and Alex Smith that he was holding the Commander Skins football team accountable for, the medical staff accountable for at the time.
Yeah, 19 was when he made that move, 2019. And he was already one of the established, best left tackles in all of football.
Oh, sure.
Made 6 Pro Bowls as a Washington Commander football skin.
I like that we change the order of them every time we say that franchise's name.
Washington Skin Commander football.
That's right.
But so I don't know if that's so much of an evaluation plus for Ran Carthon, because that's not like an evaluation that he was the best left tackle in football. But
they found an unhappy player and they found a way to make the deal work.
The deal got done.
Yeah. So somebody's asking what's out there at left tackle. I will pull up that list for you. By the way, all of this courtesy of SpaTrack, where we all can armchair GM at this time, as so many of us do. The situation for left tackles in the league. I mean, we'll just say tackles because it's not necessarily going to narrow it down here. Well, I guess you can't narrow it down to left tackle, but guys who you would consider at this point who are going to be UFAs. Can I interest you in Orlando Brown Jr., who was not a good player for Kansas City this year? Can I interest you in Eric Fisher, who ended the year on IR after many people clamored to bring him in? The Miami Dolphins, he did not rectify their situation. Kelvin Beachum, who I am shocked to see still in the league. He's 33 years old and was the starting left tackle for the Cardinals this year. Dakota Dozier and Jason Peters, who is literally 40, about to turn 41. That's the kind of this is what I'm saying. Those are the unrestricted free agents at left tackle this year.
Yeah, but what are Titans fans going to say?
Well, they're going to say cut Lewan and move on.
Right.
I think the majority.
But they're also going to say, okay, any name you just threw out there, upgrade over Dennis Daly.
Oh, yeah. But is the upgrade retention? Oh, you're talking about these guys. Oh, no, God, no, don't try and sell me on Jason Peters, Eric Fisher, and Kelvin Beachum. Please don't.
And you're going to try to sell me that Dennis Daly would be a better option than any of those guys.
Respectfully, and again, nothing about this is personal when I say shoot Dennis Daly into the sun. But get him out of here. Get him out for his sake. Get him out of here.
So what point are you trying to make here?
The point I'm trying to make is that the left tackle that they still have under contract, $14.8 million is too much to pay for him given the medical situation, but there should be heavy consideration to keeping him. Because this is too much to fix in one offseason. Because you're talking about they can't run it back with Brewer. Brewer is insufficient at the left guard position. They have to make a decision on Nate Davis. Nate Davis is currently without a contract right now.
What if Brewer's your center?
Oh, he's 275 pounds.
But it's like you said,
he looks like an inside linebacker.
But there's
out
too
there.
much work to do. There's too much to do. If you sign Nate Davis, that's 2 building blocks that you can feasibly bring back to build around with the offensive line. The other 3 spots are completely wide open.
I think they probably went into this year thinking that Brewer was the answer at center moving forward, and they still may well. But again, the new general manager changes this thing.
But even if it's a stopgap, like just to plug a hole to keep yourself afloat while you try and retool that unit.
That's too important of a position, though, to plug something in. It's not just the durability of Ben. Center, when you talk to, and I've said this before, when you talk to personnel people around the league, it'll vary sometimes, but so many people, when you ask them, what is the most important positions on a roster? Quarterback, center.
Yeah. Well, they're the only ones that touch the football every play. Yeah.
So I think that's too important to toy with by all right, big guy, just slide over and we'll, not even big guy. All right, little guy, slide over and we'll try this thing again. It's a tough situation. I'm looking forward to hearing what Ran Carthon has to say about this because it's a nightmare.
A lot of work.
It's a lot of work. That's why I'm saying, okay, in that circumstance, do you think that Taylor Lewan at left tackle is a better option than Aaron Brewer at center? That in itself is a tough question just because of the availability. And, I mean, they will have to – I think one of those two is probably – I mean, Brewer may still be here in some capacity. He's a restricted free agent, so there's some stuff that may change around there, but he will likely have a role, I would imagine, whether that's depth or otherwise. But theoretically, they need to replace three of the 5 offensive linemen right now. And I just don't think that the conversation is as simple as Taylor Lewan can be cut and save $14.8 million, and they need to move on from Taylor right away. I think that they can draft a tackle with the 11th overall pick. In fact, I think that's probably their best possible option, as tempting as wide receivers might be. Because you're not Joe Burrow at quarterback, where you can just can go get Jamar Chase and run for your life for 2 seasons behind the Bengals offensive line the way that Joe has. At some point, that situation is the thing that first and foremost needs to be rectified. And the problems there are not easily rectified. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We'll do some polls, wrap it up, send you over to Blaine and Mickey coming up next. Thought we've had a productive show today. Tomorrow will be a lot of fun as well. We are going to tape a new episode of The Install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. Greg and I are going to sit down about 3 o'clock this afternoon. That podcast will be available to you at 6. Greg and I are going to talk a lot about the offensive coordinator openings around the league, not just here in Tennessee, and be curious to get his thoughts on what he thinks of the different jobs. And obviously, we'll talk a lot about this divisional round weekend coming up. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Last call for phone calls if you got them. As we mentioned, Ran Carthon is going to speak to the media. For those of you guys who did not hear it earlier, his press conference is tentatively scheduled for Friday. So the time is TBD, but we will make sure that you have that information at your earliest disposal. We were talking about Lawan earlier. Derrick Henry did the podcast yesterday. Bussing with the boys. I haven't had a chance to hear it. I wonder what Derrick thinks. Honestly, I wonder what Derrick thinks in an honest moment of all of this. Now, he is definition a good soldier. There's no question. And I think it's a credit to that guy. Like that is the kind of guy, core person that you want to build around, not just from a leadership standpoint and obviously otherworldly skills as a running back, where running backs are so replaceable in the NFL right now. But I would love at some point after Derrick's career, it'll never happen, to just hear what he thinks about everything that happened here, however it ends here. I don't think it'll be this year, but you never know. There's going to be one cut that floors everybody, I'm sure, around the league, and Derrick is very, very low on that list, one would imagine. But I think that's my biggest question for Ran Carthon. Can you continue to build an offense around Derrick Henry in 2023? Now San Francisco is a run-based offense. And what they do now, they also have Kyle Shanahan, who's coaching on expert mode. It seems the best analysis I heard of the Giants offense this weekend is they were 49ers open. Because 49ers just have dudes running wide open all over the field all the time.
Which is a product of Vikings' atrocious pass defense as well.
Vikings, it's joking dogs.
But 49ers running backs are also kind of a different mold, right? There's not a Derrick Henry type in there.
Well, there's not a Derrick Henry type anywhere.
Sure. But as far as workhorse guys that need 20, 24, 25 carries to really get going, that's not what the 49ers have. They have guys catching passes out of the backfield. They have guys lining up in the slot, sometimes splitting out wide.
The closest thing to that Shanahan has had, you remember Carlos Hyde?
Yeah.
From Ohio State a couple of years ago?
When he was with the Browns?
He ended up with the Niners right when the Jimmy G trade happened, because I remember.
Oh, that's right.
I remember they won a bunch of games to end that season. They were down tremendous, but won a bunch of games to end that season. There was a quote from Carlos Hyde about them going to win the Super Bowl, and then they cut him and he went to the Jags the next year.
Yeah. And was Shanahan there when they drafted Nick Chubb? Nick Chubb was drafted in 2018.
No, I don't think so, because I think the last Shanahan year was Malarkey's last year as the Titans head coach. I think 17 was when he left to Atlanta.
No, Shanahan took over in San Francisco in 17.
Okay, that's right. Because it went, Atlanta, Cleveland, then San Francisco?
No, it went Cleveland, Atlanta, San Francisco.
Okay. When was that Brian Hoyer year? Brian Hoyer, they started Brian Hoyer. They won 6 or 7 games to start the year, and then they put Manziel in, and they just cratered. Absolutely cratered. Either way. Yeah, it'll be curious to find out. We'll have a lot more time to talk about it, and certainly get some good X's and O's, insights, and analysis from Greg Cosell tomorrow. Pulse.
The Buck Rising Show's almost done. Yeah. We have come to this portion of the program where we update the poll. Yeah.
Settle down, Beavis.
Go ahead, update them, Buck. Buck.
We're gonna score.
Hey, Buck.
Buck doesn't update the polls, dummy. You're stupid.
Yeah. Time for a poll update. Hey, how's it going, man?
You said poll.
Yeah. Lucas Panzica. Yeah, are you threatening me? I am the great Cornpolio.
Hey, Lucas, can you update the The poll? Lucas, give us the deets, dog.
Wait. We have new polls?
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on all non-specialty new Fords. The great Rhett Bryan doing his Beavis and Butthead.
We should put it on the poll. Is Rhett Bryan the most talented person working in this building? Because that man has more impressions. He's both Beavis and Butthead. He's both Shaggy and Scooby-Doo. He is Borat, and he is the Dark Knight. He is everyone.
Took a break from his deep dive into draft prospects for Titans Radio to do some Beavis and Butthead impersonations.
I'm glad we're putting his many, many talents to good use.
What is the dumbest thing in sports this week? Kenneth says, is it wasting my breath to say roughing the passer calls?
Oh, never.
That was the worst one we've seen all year. And the Giants, you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't think so.
Against the Giants? Just go look it up. We'll talk about it later.
Oh, my God. Really?
Eldon
the
says,
worst one we've seen this season?
Absolutely, without question.
I need to go. That game, I was.
It was called on maybe called on Dexter Lawrence. I don't want to misspeak. Who had an incredible game, but Giants. It was called on the Giants. They end up winning the game, but just go look at it.
Okay, I'll
it
go.
was atrocious. Eldon says trading for Trey Lance just because Carthon was hired. Yeah, we haven't hit on this. I'm glad we haven't hit on this.
I have no interest in hitting on this.
Good. Okay, then we're on the same page.
Very good.
All right. See, because you're out there tweeting. You're quote tweeting, Trey Lance's Instagram
I didn't
story.
do that.
You said, oh, no.
Well, yeah, but I did that with Tom Brady. I did that with Jalen Ramsey. There's a thing going on. I'm doing a thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
but can we...
I'm not the people screenshotting Trey Lance's Instagram story and then trying to turn it into Trey Lance to the Titans.
So it's the Instagram story with the fingers crossed emojis. Will you do me a favor real quick? Will you open up your phone? Will you go into the keyboard and go to the emojis keyboard?
Okay.
And go to search emojis?
Okay.
Now type in good luck.
Sure enough.
What do you see?
4-leaf clover and the fingers crossed
Fingers
emoji.
crossed emoji. Okay, so let's shut up about Trey Lance. What was your reaction to the Titans hiring Ran Carthon? 62% love it. 35% are cautiously optimistic. 3% said, eh.
I'm with No, I'm kidding. I do like that. The hire ultimately I think is a good decision. I honestly think they would have done well with Ian Cunningham. I think Ryan Cowden gets a bad rap because of the administration that he was a part of, but you can't remove that from his resume.
What should be Ran Carthon's first order of business as the new Titans GM? Andrew says, name Lucas the host of this show. George says, fire Buck and promote Lucas. I'm trying to find answers that just don't say to fire you and promote me. V-Love says, inform the public of his beard care routine.
He does have a nice beard.
I would
also like at the end of the press conference to ask Ran Carthon about his beard routine.
Brett says, call Todd Downing and fire him again.
Okay, let the man alone.
That's the last one.
It's like Dennis Daly. It's like, you remember who was the dude that did the Leave Britney Alone videos like back in like the early 2000s? Leave Dennis alone.
Marino says, figure out the QB situation so he knows who he has to build around.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Who retires first, Brady or Rodgers? 58% say Brady.
I think Rodgers. Rodgers sounds infinitely more kind of like up in the air than Tom Brady does.
Because when Rodgers talks about coming back, he's saying, yeah, I think I could win MVP again. It's like, what about a Super Bowl, man?
You know what? That's a really good point. I didn't think about that.
Brady's talking about, yeah, I think I could win another Super Bowl. Rodgers like, yeah, I could win MVP.
I could do MVP again.
Those are the polls.
But there has never been a more telling definition of those two individuals than that particular mindset versus the other. All right, great show. Blaine and Mickey up next. Talk to you on Prime Time tonight. Radio show tomorrow at 10.